My name is Adam Feeney, and I've recently completed a 7-week placement in a psychogeriatric hospital. I worked with a range of diagnoses including dementia, depression and anxiety, bipolar and personality disorders. I worked with a 69-year-old gentleman named Brian, who was diagnosed with major depression with melancholic features. Brian is married with 3 children and enjoys reading the newspaper and magazines, working on his computer, and going walking and exercising to free his mind. Brian was involved in a range of group therapy interventions and one-on-one interventions aimed at reducing his depressive and anxiety symptoms and lowering his risk of self-harm and suicide, to eventually transition back to his home in the community with his wife. Brian enjoyed participating in cognitive and reminiscence activities as well as gross motor activities. The decision I'm going to talk about today involves the level of risk Brian was assessed at for self-harm, suicide and absconding, and weighing this against the benefits of allowing him to participate in bushwalks and bus trips outside the hospital. Throughout the discussion, I will raise occupational theory, ethical considerations, aspects of clinical reasoning, the use of an OT model, and the influence of the practice context. Using occupational theory, we know that engagement in occupation leads to well-being and health. Brian expressed a desire to participate in these activities, and this formed part of the narrative reasoning, along with knowing that he previously engaged in walking and exercise before admission. Brian's wife and family were anxious about him leaving the hospital, as they weren't confident that his risk could be managed and were worried that something may happen, due to his previous suicidal ideations and attempts. This was recognised by the multidisciplinary team, and the family were reassured of the procedures in place to minimise risk. However, it is important to advocate for Brian as part of person-centred care and put in place practices that will help to achieve his goals. There were a range of ethical considerations that had to be worked through with the team. This included Brian's autonomy, beneficence and non-maleficence. It was important to consider Brian's welfare throughout the process and endeavour to do no harm to him or his family, whilst ensuring that his needs were put first to ensure person-centred care. Brian's autonomy had to be recognised with regards to allowing him to participate, with boundaries put in place, including supervision from staff. Pragmatically, the team were confident that there were the correct measures and procedures in place to prevent any risk-taking behaviour. This included extra emphasis on supervision, assessing the environment for risk factors, carrying mobile phones and duress alarms, and creating a positive environment for Brian to engage in, including encouragement and positive feedback. Rapport was built with Brian over a period of time where nursing staff felt that risk could be managed and used conversational strategies and non-verbal techniques to manage these. The levels of rapport that staff had built with Brian was used throughout the decision-making process, and this allowed information to be gathered about Brian to ensure that the staff knew him and his personality well. The practice context allowed for Brian to be included in the bushwalks and bus outings due to the physical location with bushland at the back of the hospital suitable for walking, and the resources for the bus outings, including the bus and the availability of staff. When this was factored into the decision, it aided in knowing that the staff were trained and experienced to manage Brian, and that policies and procedures of the facility catered for risk-taking behaviour and had action plans to be put in place if needed. Certain assessments have to be carried out to be allowed on the bus trip, and these were completed by OT staff. The analysis of the PEOP model showed all the barriers and enablers that informed the overall decision. Barriers identified included Brian's depressive and anxiety symptoms, his level of risk, and the family's anxiety about him participating. These were countered by the enablers, which included his willingness and motivation to participate, the resources available within the practice context, and his physiological capabilities. The decision was made with consultation from the multidisciplinary team to allow Brian to participate in these activities to enable assessment of his function in the community, help him to show his family that he can be taken out by them, and to re-engage him in occupations outside of those of the hospital. Thank you.